You won't believe shocking reasons why Russia never colonized Africa. Why did Russia not participate in the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885 that divided Africa? Back in the late 19th century, European powers did the unimaginable and drew lines on Africa's map, dividing countries among themselves. It was as if they were dividing the land they inherited and were entitled to rule. Being thousands of kilometers away, they decided the fate of the entire continent. However, one European power was missing: Russia. It never participated in the colonization of Africa. Even if it was a European power and not much different than the rest of Europe, this was a major deviation. This begs the question: why did Russia never colonize Africa? Was it because Russia did not have the capability, or did it deliberately do it so it could come as a savior, as it's happening now? Well, today, knowing the reasons behind it is important to understand the current events. Let's know more about that in this video. It's interesting to know that Russia wanted to colonize Africa, but did not have suitable factors to succeed. Therefore, although the Russians showed interest in establishing trading colonies and spreading Christianity in Africa, their commitment to these endeavors was noticeably lacking. Number 1. Geography. Geographically, Russia's vast size and its relative distance from Africa posed significant barriers to any potential involvement in the scramble for African territories. Unlike its European counterparts, Russia lacked direct access to Africa and encountered logistical hurdles in establishing a presence on the continent. This was a key element. If a colonizing power wanted to colonize a nation, it had to be completely self-sufficient to reach the colony. Otherwise, the colony can never be ruled. The immense distances, rugged terrain, and absence of convenient sea routes made any African expedition daunting for Russian policymakers, who prioritized other strategic objectives. To reach Africa, Russians would have had to navigate the Black Sea via the Ottoman Empire, which was not an ally. Centuries of conflict between Russia and the Ottomans, notably the Crimean War in the mid-19th century, left hostility between the two empires. Even if the Ottomans had permitted passage through the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits, the British posed another obstacle at the strategically crucial Suez Canal, likely to hinder Russian expansion. Alternatively, the route through St. Petersburg required navigating the Baltic Sea, then the North Sea, before finally reaching the Atlantic Ocean. However, this path presented its own challenges, including navigating through Danish waters. These geographical barriers, combined with political tensions and the strategic maneuvers of other powers, deterred Russia from fully committing to colonization efforts in Africa. Therefore, while European powers competed for African territories, Russia focused on solidifying control over regions closer to home. The government directed efforts toward expanding into Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Siberia, regions offering ample territorial expansion and resource exploitation opportunities, aligning with Russia's immediate strategic interests. Number 2. Internal crises. Throughout the 1800s, Russia grappled with significant political, economic, and social turmoil, which hindered its ability to pursue African colonization. Domestically, the Russian Empire faced internal unrest and revolutionary movements calling for political and social reform. These disruptions diverted attention and resources away from potential overseas expansion as the government focused on addressing domestic challenges and maintaining control over its vast territories. One notable political upheaval was the Decembrist Revolt of 1825. Triggered by the death of Tsar Alexander I, dissatisfied military officers staged an unsuccessful uprising against the ascension of Nicholas I to the throne, reflecting growing discontent with autocratic rule and prompting calls for reform. Furthermore, Russia's involvement in conflicts with the Ottoman Empire, including the draining Crimean War of 1853-1856, redirected resources and focus away from colonial ambitions. Economically, Russia struggled to modernize its economy and alleviate widespread poverty, hindering its capacity for overseas expansion. Challenges in infrastructure development and industrialization constrained resources, with a focus on addressing domestic needs rather than costly ventures like African colonization. The abolition of serfdom in 1861, intended to address social inequalities, resulted in significant economic disruption and social unrest. Additionally, Russia's slow industrialization, lagging behind Western European powers, limited its global competitiveness. Technological backwardness and bureaucratic inefficiencies impeded efforts to modernize the economy and build the necessary infrastructure for colonial expansion. Socially, tensions simmered among various social classes and ethnic groups within the diverse Russian Empire. The abolition of serfdom failed to fully address peasant grievances, leading to sporadic uprisings and unrest. Revolutionary movements, such as the Narodniks and later the Social Democrats, emerged advocating for change, further straining resources and diverting attention from external expansion efforts. Number 3. Little interest in Africa. Perhaps the biggest reason why Russia did not colonize Africa is the lack of incentives and motivation. It's because colonies in Asia and the Americas reduced Russia's reliance on African resources or markets, providing little incentive for involvement. However, other European powers like Britain and France had dominated the local markets and needed more. Additionally, Russia aimed to maintain power in Europe and Asia, cautious of overextending resources in African expansion. Cultural differences further shaped Russia's outlook, with less hunger for overseas expansion compared to its colonialist European counterparts. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Number 4. Undeveloped Navy. In the 1880s, having a strong navy was vital for any nation seeking to expand its influence through colonization. A powerful navy was the primary means of projecting military might, controlling crucial sea routes, and protecting colonial interests. Nations with formidable naval fleets held a significant advantage in their efforts to expand their overseas territories and assert dominance on the global stage. However, countries lacking well-trained and adequately equipped navies faced substantial obstacles in their colonization endeavors, and Russia was one of them. Without naval supremacy, it struggled to efficiently move troops, vital supplies, and settlers to distant lands. Additionally, its susceptibility to attacks and blockades by rival naval powers severely hampered its ability to establish and maintain colonies. You should know that naval forces were crucial in securing strategic locations such as ports and coastal areas, essential for facilitating colonial trade and asserting maritime control. Dominating key naval passages like the Suez Canal granted nations crucial access to distant colonies and facilitated trade routes. Moreover, navies functioned as a vital tool for enforcing colonial rule and suppressing local resistance. Through actions like coastal bombardments, port blockades, and land-based operations, naval forces ensured compliance with colonial authorities and maintained order in newly acquired territories. However, the Russian Navy lagged behind some other European navies during that time, presenting obstacles for Russia to establish a presence in Africa, where strong naval power was often crucial. Additionally, opposition emerged within Russia itself regarding the pursuit of colonies in Africa. Many Russians believed the government should prioritize addressing domestic issues rather than pursuing distant territories. This combination of factors influenced Russia's decision to refrain from joining the competition for African territories during the scramble for Africa. Number 5. Russia tried but failed. A less-known fact is that Russia did try colonizing Africa. However, it failed to do so, which made it never try again. Lieutenant Grigory Chertkov, serving in Africa in 1897 under the Russian Empire, emphasized a rule highlighting the perceived superiority of his race. Remember, you are white, a man of the superior race. You should know that Chertkov was part of a delegation sent by Russian Emperor Nicholas II to Ethiopia, aiming to establish a formal Russian diplomatic mission to integrate the African country into the Russian imperial sphere. To African observers witnessing the Russian convoy's journey from a Djibouti port to Addis Ababa, the Russians likely appeared no different from other European colonial troops. Adorned with white pith helmets, symbolizing racial superiority, the Russians mirrored their European counterparts in advancing imperial ambitions. Before that, Nikolai Ashanov, a self-proclaimed Cossack and influential figure adept at charming imperial decision-makers, brought Africa to the attention of Russian officials. In 1885, Ashanov proposed ambitious plans to establish Russia's presence in Africa by conquering Sudan and Ethiopia, along with their Red Sea coasts, asserting that he had enough volunteers to establish a colony. However, his endeavors awaited approval from St. Petersburg, the imperial capital. Ashinov's campaign attracted attention not just for its audacity, but also for the stir it created among the highest levels of power. Several ministers and Chief Procurator Konstantin Pobedonostsev of the Holy Synod, who wielded considerable influence over the emperor, saw it as a chance to acquire an African colony on the cheap. This approach meant St. Petersburg could sidestep military deployment by privately funding the venture. Many statesmen recognized the potential of such an endeavor. For instance, Navy Minister Ivan Shestakov aimed to set up a coal station for Russian steamships along the Red Sea coast, which became more important after the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. Meanwhile, individuals like Nikolai Baranov, the governor of Nizhny Novgorod, saw opportunities for resource exploitation. He proposed establishing the Russian African Company with its fleet and garrison to extract resources and trade with local populations. Baranov's arguments about the commercial benefits persuaded Emperor Alexander III. Later, in March 1888, a Russian warship carrying Ashinov and his companions arrived off the coast of Tajura, now Djibouti. While Lieutenant A.K. Ivanovsky negotiated a protectorate status with a local sultan, Ashinov stayed to set up a settlement. When Ashinov returned to Russia, he boasted about founding the Russian colony of New Moscow. Plans were made to send settlers under the guise of a religious mission led by Archimandrite Paisi. However, it soon emerged that the settlement didn't exist. Ashinov's men had fled due to food shortage, giving up control of the African colony. To avoid international embarrassment, St. Petersburg withdrew official support but allowed the mission to continue privately, hoping for success. In December 1888, over 100 settlers, including Ashinov, left from Odessa. They reached the Gulf of Tajura in January 1889, settling in the old Ottoman fort of Sagalo and raising the Russian flag. Their attempts at farming for sustenance were short-lived, as France had already claimed the coast, despite assurances from a local chief to the Russians. In February 1889, French gunboats bombarded Sagalo, resulting in casualties among the settlers. The French took the survivors to Port Said in Egypt before repatriating them to Russia. To avoid a significant diplomatic incident, Russian authorities denied any involvement in the colonization of Tajura. After this, Russia never tried colonizing Africa, considering it too risky. What did you believe about Russia not colonizing Africa earlier? Apart from the reasons we told in the video, tell us what, in your opinion, is the reason behind Russia's non-interference during the scramble for Africa. In the comments section right below, share your thoughts on Russia's current strategy of going inside Africa and whether it would be possible if Russia had colonized Africa. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.